So I made a video about Kirby a while back. Please go watch that before this one, because otherwise you will be quite confused. If you remember, I delved mostly into the inherent issues I had with the copyability system that was introduced in Kirby's Adventure on the NES. I don't think it's a bad game, but I'll basically just be repeating my entire video if I go over that. So the point is, I think it's appropriate to make some sequels to cover whether or not I think the flaws with this copyability system continue into Kirby's Adventure's follow-ups, and to provide an overall review of each game too. I doubt I'll get to every single Kirby game, but if these do well, perhaps I'll make a sort of retrospective series. Anyways, the mainline Kirby game that comes after Kirby's Adventure is Kirby's Dreamland 2, and then Kirby's Superstar comes after that. However, Kirby's Dreamland 2 is part of a collection of games known as the Zero/Dark Matter Trilogy. They basically tell the story of this evil dude named Zero, progressively making people further and further question why these games are E-rated. They're also distinguished from some of the other classic entries due to being directed by Shinichi Shigemura, rather than Masahiro Sakurai, likely a reason they feel so different. Knowing this, I thought it would be fun to skip over Superstar for now and actually analyze these games as a whole. So for this video, I'll be doing a review, and possibly even complaining about copyabilities, for Kirby's Dreamland 2, Kirby's Dreamland 3, and Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards, and sort of analyzing these three games as a trilogy on their own. The series has some design elements that definitely feel almost unique to them specifically, making the Dark Matter trilogy almost feel like a spin-off of the main Kirby series. Let's get into the first game to be discussed today, Kirby's Dreamland 2 for the Game Boy. A game I expected to be similar to the original Kirby's Dreamland, but suffice to say, it was not. Kirby's Dreamland 2 is a game that makes me want to fall asleep. I mean, hey, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Sleep is good. But really, the level design feels like it mostly consists of long, flat areas with enemies scattered about. And this feels different from previous Kirby games, which are more concise and compact with their level design. Later on, they get better, adding enough challenge to make it slightly more stimulating, but I still find a twinge of blandness to the rest of the game. I had fun, don't get me wrong. Some sections are tough and feel absolutely worthy of what the past two games set up, but those are concerningly rare in this game. It's like no one's bothered to put some spice on the experience. There just aren't that many challenging bits, and it shows in the fact that it took me to World 4 to actually die for the first time. The game still offers you some little challenges that can give you things like health, which I like, and the game introduces collectibles for each level. That's great. It's basically a perfect way to get older players to want to play in a way that challenges them more, and new players can get better at the game by searching for these things. Banger idea. If you get enough of these collectibles called Rainbow Drops, you can even fight a secret final boss, Dark Matter. I didn't do this because my Switch randomly gave me an error message while I was on the 6th world, and not a single bit of progress in this game was saved. So that's fun. Bosses follow a similar format to Kirby's Adventure here, but I found them to not as fun as the bosses in those games. Song copy abilities, of course. This is mostly just due to them being a bit easier, and having attacks or projectiles that are more telegraphed. What I liked about the bosses that preceded this game is that they feel like puzzles. Yes, very easy puzzles, but puzzles where you have to find an opening and try to suck up something that would be used as a projectile to spit back at them. In Kirby's Dreamland 2, they felt off, mostly just because the projectiles were more obvious and easy to suck up. Probably just due to hardware limitations, but still it's a problem. So, copy abilities, huh? Those sure are a thing. Yeah, so all of my points about copy abilities trivializing the bits of challenge in this Kirby series still apply. Areas can still be rendered jokes, not very funny ones, due to copy abilities. However, I feel like earlier on in the game, they're almost necessary to use, simply because the game has almost no tension at all due to extreme easiness, and it's like, you're clearly gonna win anyways, why not have some fun with it? That is not good design though, because mindlessly running through enemies is only fun if there's some challenge to it. Otherwise, it's just work. The fun parts the game does start to include in its later levels, still trivialized by them unfortunately. Now, what's interesting about Kirby's Dream Land 2 is that it essentially contains exactly what I asked for in my video on Kirby's Adventure. Areas built specifically around power-ups. Only it's not copy abilities. It's the animal buddies. These animals are dropped off by bosses and Kirby can ride on them to provide advantages in the levels. It's a system I'm very mixed on. Some levels will have bosses with bags above their heads, with one of Kirby's friends very cruelly stuffed into them. So, Kirby needs to pick his friend up because they're feeling down and rearrange someone's face when they're acting like a clown. And if you're not fighting on our side, I pity you. With these new powers, you can jump higher, fly better, or swim better, and levels will arrange themselves to suit the strength of your animal buddy. These are often some of the most fun parts of the game. They can also work in tandem with copy abilities, and I actually find it pretty fun how they do so. Sure, some copy abilities break everything, but they can also feel balanced at times. However, they also feel very restrictive, to the point where I just prefer to use Kirby all the time. Hamster Man can jump slightly better than Kirby, but Kirby can fly, jump, and swim. Yeah, I prefer to just use Kirby. It's not that their restrictions make them unplayable, and levels do take into account how they play, like I mentioned before. But sometimes it's just annoying to have some of Kirby's normal abilities like flight taken away, just so a hamster can help you jump slightly better. Animals also add on to Kirby's health bar, which I don't think is the right decision considering how much health he already has. In concept, an improvement over Kirby's Adventure. In practice, not so much. Also, you can no longer do a crouching slide attack, so the game is ruined. This game overall has a lot of charm to it, which isn't surprising for a Kirby game, but it still looks great here. On a tiny little Game Boy, this game managed to convey a surprising amount of information through its bar on the bottom, in a way that looks pretty cool and cute. Speaking of, I don't know if it's just me, but the way Kirby walks looks like 10 times cuter than it normally does, and I'm here for it. It's honestly a huge advantage of this game, unironically. Also, I love the way he just shoved himself into the mouth of the fish guy. That's perfect too. I made a little list of notes while I was playing this game to make this review, and one of them I just wrote booby level. Why the hell is this in the game? Why did I need to mention it here? I do not know. I just know it's hilarious. I've been pretty harsh on this game, but I still like it. Kinda, sorta, maybe, a little bit. It's still sometimes fun, and like I said before, sleep is good. You should get at least 8 hours of it every night. I don't know what this metaphor means anymore. I am playing up some of its flaws, but it is frustrating. Like, this game is missing out on so much potential. They say there aren't any bad Kirby games. I certainly haven't found any. I have found very mediocre Kirby games, though, and this is one of them. Let's see if Kirby's Dream Land 3 is any better. And, yeah, this is the one I played before. I do not remember it being that good. I was dreading replaying this. The experience? It was about as uninteresting as I expected. So the one thing I can absolutely, definitively say about Kirby's Dream Land 3 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System is that the crouching slide attack returns. But seriously, one of the things I immediately noticed about this game is how levels, they're just the same as Kirby's Dream Land 2, only expanded, meaning they're longer and more bland. And the small quantity of enemies in certain parts makes this game more padded than a minority walking through an airport security checkpoint. It shows that bigger isn't always better, and Dreamland 2 feels almost compact compared to this game. I applaud the effort Shimamura took in taking his own distinct approach to this game, not just lifting the structure and parts of the level design from Superstar. But that's not too much of a compliment when it's just kind of milquetoast. It's not an objective flaw, but Kirby also feels less floaty and more stiff, which gives the game a distinct feel. It's perfectly fine, that just takes some time to get used to. This game isn't just fluff, however, as the system of collectibles returns from Kirby's Dream Land 2, this time with a little twist. To get 100% completion and the hidden final boss, which is named after the amount I care to fight him, you have these little guys at the end of each level, and basically you need to please them to get a collectible called the Heart Star. Once you have all Heart Stars, the true ending is opened up. Like with Dreamland 2, this is a great idea. I overall like it, but the implementation is just weird. To please each little dude, you just need to do the most random specific thing, which can range from those extra challenge things I love so much, to bringing an animal friend to the end of the stage, to a minigame, to doing something to the plants on the stage, as Strategy Wiki so elegantly puts it. Problem is, it's very difficult to tell what you're supposed to do without a guide, and the solution is pretty difficult to just stumble upon without much effort the majority of the time. So, while it might be a little flat, the mechanic does succeed in adding some cool things to Dreamland 3, and I definitely like the idea of it. There's just no way in hell I'm completing the game though. Animal friends and copy abilities of course return, and I guess first I'll say, copy abilities are indeed copy abilities, flaws and all. I almost feel like they're more fun here, in a game-breaking sort of sense. With more open levels, rushing through and basically ruining them can provide some more amusement in a turn-your-brain-off sort of way. This is a sort of random tangent, but turn your brain off has been used as a compliment way more than a phrase like turn your brain off should be used as a compliment, in my opinion. Anyways, sometimes the game gives you extra challenges for health, my beloved, in the form of blocks that can only be broken by certain power-ups. I kept on thinking that was a good idea. I like them adding a challenge and the need to keep power-ups. For the 2 times in the entire game I saw those blocks, yeah, the developers forget about them at times. At least they don't overuse them, that would probably be worse, but it's still a little lame. Anyways, animal friends no longer come from mini-bosses now. Super. Yeah, animal friends take a dip in this game, due to how they're more abundant, and no longer have levels that feel built around them. There are definitely levels that feel made with the intent to have animals helping you out in them, but those are rare, and not the default. Most of the time you'll have a choice between which animal you'll want to pick, which just makes them glorified copy abilities, only they don't disappear when Kirby gets hit. Their strengths were essentially taken away. One small factor I liked about the game is that animal buddies no longer act as a separate health bar to Kirby's, which I'm sure is there to offset how frequently they appear. So just had to mention that in the interest of fairness. This isn't an animal friend per se, but the game is also playable in co-op. I didn't want to go through the effort of subjecting a friend to experience I don't even think is fun, so I played solo. In single player, you have the option to, at any point in the game I guess, summon Gooey, who can play along with you and fight enemies as well. Great concept if you love the tension removed. Sometimes it feels like this game is baiting me into complaining about it. I guess I can't bitch about it too much, it's meant for co-op, but the fact that he has a CPU in single player at all just feels wrong. When I look at this game, I honestly think there's only one thing I can say I loved about it, and that is the presentation. This is a downright beautiful game with its own distinct look. It's right up there with your DKCs and Yoshi's Islands in terms of best looking SNES games. Sure, it released very late into the console's lifespan, so it kind of has to look good, but compliment still stands. It has this picture book look to it, and despite its flaws, it's at least a cute, charming game. Well, one more Dark Matter game, and that is Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards. This game is easily the one I was most excited for going into this video. I hear a lot of people praising it. It looks really nice. Its main hook is the ability to combine power-ups to form new ones. That makes it feel very unique compared to other Kirby games, and considering how much copy abilities have been a point of discussion in these videos, I think it necessary for me to discuss that when the time comes. Anyways, Dreamland 2 and 3 both made me way more cautiously optimistic than just plain optimistic, but then I was still excited. So let's get into it. The pastel storybook aesthetic I adored in Dreamland 3 is given a 2.5D twist, and brought to its natural next step in Kirby 64 with the look that brings a children's pop-up book to mind. It's really cute and fits the character of Kirby to a T. Upon further inspection, some of the background textures can look pretty choppy and low quality, even for N64 standards, but it's not a big deal at all once you think of it like a pop-up book. In between levels, there are these cute little cutscenes, told without voice acting, of characters interacting with each other and moving between worlds. These are fun as well, and honestly, every little bit of personality that can be put into a game like this, always welcome in my eyes. Kirby and DDD are friends now. That's pretty wholesome. Early on in the game, there are these cutscenes of characters getting possessed by dark matter. well, technically it's 0 now, in ways that are actually kind of unnerving for an E-rated game. You have to fight them. After those first few levels, this unnervingness is just completely gone until the final boss. Speaking of the final boss, yeah, you sure you should have made this like E10 or something? Anyways, the way that works, the game being unnerving at first, but that goes away later on, is honestly pretty funny. It almost makes you feel on edge that something weird might happen at times. You know, like, what are the kids playing these days? Poppy Playtime, Garden of Banban? Yeah, those games wish they could blend kid stuff with creepy things this seamlessly. Anyways, not only does this game hit it out of the park with the charm factor, the soundtrack is awesome too. Really underrated OST, and might actually be the best soundtrack on the N64, which wasn't composed by a Kondo or Kirkhope. This music helps to make it an extremely memorable experience, which wasn't necessarily something I could have said about the Kirby games with Dreamland and a prime number in their title. How's the level design, though? Well, fortunately, it's a step up for sure. Some of the design philosophies are still present. Areas feel more open, and the enemy variety isn't as high as Sakurai-directed entries, but it just feels more interesting now. It seems to have a higher understanding of what gets you excited and interested, and I no longer find myself too bored by levels. They were fun and engaging all the way through, and I can see this being someone's favorite Kirby game. For the first time, a Dark Matter game has felt like it had level design that was different, not worse, than what Sakurai was at the helm of. It's a massive improvement. One thing I also appreciated with the bosses throughout the game, they usually take full advantage of the 2.5D environment, allowing you to move in a full 360-degree circle, or just taking advantage of the screen in ways not possible in previous generations. It's a treat for what was already a fun part of the Kirby games, and I really admire the way they did this. So, Kirby certainly can inhale his enemy and make it later, huh? Well, copy abilities still offer their frustrating avoidance of game mechanics here in a way I didn't appreciate too much. You can still avoid lots of actual game mechanics, and the points I talked about in this and my adventure video still apply. Except they're a little worse here, because it takes more hits for you to lose an ability. While it was previously 1 or 2 hits that took a copy ability, here it's more like 4 or 5. That was pretty surprising to me. Sure, it's easy to really quickly grab an ability, so it's not too big of a difference, but still, I thought it was a step down. If you have one ability, the only deciding factor on how long you keep it is if you get bored of it or if you die. It's Kirby, you don't die much. That means there's not much incentive to innovate. Sure, I could give up the power I have now, but why would I do that if I'm already crushing everything with it? Kirby 64 also introduces a huge innovation to the system, the ability to combine power-ups. By taking a power-up and throwing it at an enemy, or by inhaling 2 enemies at once, you can combine power-ups to make new ones, often leading to clever and unique powers. Bomb and fire make you a firework. Ice and spark make you a refrigerator. Needle and stone gives you a drill. They're all really cute, and believe it or not, I enjoyed this mechanic. Finding out what these new copy abilities are and discovering new combinations is nothing short of cathartic, and well, copy abilities are here anyways, like they were not. I don't see why adding more abilities would make the game any worse. But yes, they're still copy abilities, and their mechanic avoiding ways are still present, which is unfortunate. Some of these do really cool things, and I wish I could use these copy abilities knowing I wouldn't be ruining parts of this game. I found a lot of good things in Kirby 64 and the other Kirby games. It really opened up this question for me. Are Kirby games broken beyond repair? Can they ever really get over this issue with their design and playstyle? I don't even know at this point. Forgotten Land might fix it, but that's a 3D game, and it seems quite different from these Kirby games. So is there really a way to have these fun abilities and not have them carry this baggage along with them? I'll be continuing this retrospective series on the Kirby franchise, and I don't want to exclusively talk about copy abilities, because that would be very, very dull, but I will keep it in the back of my mind as a thing to discuss when appropriate. Next time I'll talk about Kirby Superstar and its remake, and then, because I'm forgoing any semblance of these being in order, after that I'll make a video talking about the Game Boy and SNES spin-offs. More specifically, Kirby's Pinball Land, Kirby's Dream Course, Kirby's Avalanche, Kirby's Block Ball, Kirby's Star Stacker, and Kirby Tilt and Tumble. So, if you've been enjoying these, there you go. Wait for those or whatever. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you later. Also, why do people make such a big deal out of Kirby with the gun when he can wield a literal flaming Zweihander here?